Hello and welcome to Identity Office Hours. I'm your host, Mike Schwartz, founder of Glue, and today is episode 12 of Identity Office Hours, and we're going to talk about SSI Beyond Identities. And I have with me today our guest, Alexandre Gomez. Welcome, Alexandre.
Hi, Mike. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And also Edgar Silva. Welcome, Edgar.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having us today. I hope this can be a very interesting episode for everyone.
So I'm just going to read the description because I think it's a good place to start. The description for today was, did you know self-sovereign identity is not only about identities? In this episode, we're going to uncover another side of the SSI universe, exploring some of the use cases that go beyond the sovereign management of identifiers. And Alexandre, I guess I'll start with you with this question. What does that mean, the sovereign management of identifiers? What is the starting point here?
Cool. It's a very good start, Mike. Well, actually, when we talk about self-sovereign identity, we naturally we used to think about identities somehow, and this is where everything starts from. But it's not where everything ends. So, uh, usually when we start looking to this subject, studying this field, uh, we start learning about how identities are so concentrated on some uh, few players, and the how the end user has no control of its data, its identity, and this is the original motivation behind self-sovereign identities. However, when you dive deep into this subject, this matter, you realize that the technology can be used for so many other purposes and so many other uh, objectives. And this is the goal of our talking today. So when it comes to sovereignty management of identities, in a nutshell, it means that I will have the full control of my identity. It's not gonna be uh, under the control of some big tech company or some other organization. That means that me, as the user, I will decide who who I will share my information with, and the whole management of my own data without delegating it to another company or another organization. This is where everything begins.
Mike, you on mute?
Quite correct.
Yeah.
um, and when you say that the use cases go beyond the management of self-sovereign identifiers, are you thinking about other type of identities? I see a lot of guitars behind you. So what kind of identities are we thinking about?
Yeah, we can actually. There are the how can I say, the common understanding is uh, identities of human beings, but at the end of the day, we can identify anything. We can identify people, we can identify animals, we can identify objects like my guitars, we can identify digital assets as well. We can identify uh, financial assets either. So uh, and that's the interesting thing, because when I said at the description, and or when you decided to talk about beyond identities, it's just to make clear that it's not only about my personal ID. It's not my identification only. We are talking about uh, a digital way to identify multiple objects in the world.
If it's okay, one of the, if I wanted to show one of the diagrams from the homework links. So this is the. I'm sorry, wrong.
I
Okay.
can see a diagram with the
Yeah,
issuer, holder, verifier.
yeah. That's actually not the one I wanted to share. Let me say, find it again. Um, I'm going to do the whole window, entire screen. Yeah. Sorry about that. So this one actually was from one of the articles. Yeah, we'll get to that next article or that next diagram in a second, because I do want to talk about um, the software in this equation. But I thought, this is an interesting diagram. And if it's too small to read it on your phone, on the left side, we have government, universities, companies, banks. So I guess these are the issuers of, and it says it right up here, the issuers of identities. And then we have in the middle credentials. So governments issue all kinds of credentials like national ID or passport. Companies issue credentials, your company employee ID card. Banks issue credentials, obviously your bank card. And then we have use cases here. And I guess the title of the article was 35 use cases. I'm guessing that if you sum up all of these use cases in these different sectors, you'll get 35. But then we go into sort of vertical segments here. So the consumers or verifiers of these credentials are government, e-travel, e-health, education, banking, working, real estate, commerce, and so. But could you talk a little bit about um, how this, what you think that this type of infrastructure will enable in the future?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, this is a very cool example because, as I was saying, everything starts with my personal ID. This is my personal ID from Brazil. This is my driver license, actually. So this driver license, what is it used for? It uh, it tells whoever is interested that I'm able to drive in Brazil. So that's what it's used for. So when do I use this piece of paper? Usually when there is the police or some kind of fiscalization on the streets, and they stop me and they ask me for my permission to drive. Then I show them this document, and they say, okay, you are able, you have the rights to drive, so you are good to go. So this is the very beginning. And however, this kind of document can also be replaced by this one. This is my bank identification. So this one has no information about my banking account. This one has information about my banking account. So for the bank, I use this one, and for the the police, I use that one. And the thing is, uh, both of them are identifiers. Both of them are identities that I carry with myself. And the thing is, uh, what if we give a common name for both of them? Because this one is my bank card, this one is my driver license. But what if we could have a common name, a common vocabulary for them? So the community defined the term credential to refer to this kind of IDs, let's say like this. And the main architecture behind this this framework is like someone will issue a document, someone will hold that document, and someone will verify that document. So this document can be my driver license, this document can be my banking card. This document can be my passport. It can be my student ID. It can be a ticket, a flying ticket. It can be multiple different kinds of credentials. So this column in the middle of your diagram, it shows different credentials that can be issued by someone and that could be verified by someone else. So probably at there is some combination on this diagram, good, which is a driver license is issued by some government agency. Look, the first one, the government is the issuer. Probably in the very middle, there is a driver license or something like that. And on the other end, there is other agents interested on verifying this driver license. So where can I use that driver license? I can use it to show the police that I'm able to drive. I can use it as an ID to travel in South America. I can use it to identify myself as an adult to buy beer. I can use it for different purpose, and each of those purpose is a different use case. So we have multiple use case for multiple credential types that are issued by multiple kind of issuers. So this is the main idea behind this diagram over there.
Yeah, maybe I'll just quickly show. You were sort of diving into it. The next diagram, because you mentioned holder, issuer, verifier. So let me try and share this one now. Yeah, and I sort of edited this diagram. This is the diagram from Wikipedia that we see quite a bit. And I threw in what I think of as being a techie, the software that provides these things. But Edgar, maybe I could ask you to comment really quickly if you have any thoughts on what this new architecture means for enterprises out there as they're looking at these different pieces of software in order to really realize this new identity architecture.
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic because for enterprise perspective, they are looking forward to ways to do the things in the more reliable way. Let's say for QIC purposes, this very often to certify that someone or the organization they are who they are saying they are, right? And there's a lot of background checking. There's a lot of ways to verify this kind of if the document is issued or not by, let's say, in the right way, or it's expired or it's still valid. So there's a lot of constraints nowadays that can be, let's say, somehow damaged, or simply like someone can just change some expiration dates, or simulate, or even like create certificates that doesn't exist. And sometimes like even this digital, let's say, authenticators, they can rely on this kind of false documents or false information. And using this kind of a technology, not only we have a way to properly verify if those documents are reliable or not, and as we mentioned in the early in this episode, like not only about people, but also the things that can be belong to people, right? There's another interesting thing, another interesting use case that we can mention, like in later in this episode, that we can attach this concept of verifiable credentials that is very attached to the identities or distributed identities itself, right? So the companies, they're going to be especially not only for banks but telcos, but public sector organizations, but any use case that must rely in the kind of risk compliance checks, or onboarding, or simply like making sure that this item, this, let's say, thing, belongs or is properly issued or produced, or or managed by this organization is reliable or not. For instance, there is a very interesting like I forgot. I think you can recall me this name in the U.S. When they have any car accident, there is a kind of it's a company or is it agent that takes care about any damage, any when you send your car to fix, for maintenance, things like that. You have a
Yeah.
record, right? I don't know how we call this
Um, yeah. Well, I'm with you. Yeah, we have there's DMV records and there's
yeah,
Department of Motor
exactly.
Vehicles, and also the insurance adjuster is going to need everyone's information. The police might show up. Um,
Exactly.
maybe
So
not. No, normally not these days, actually.
yeah, but this is the thing, like imagine that, okay, I can like scan a whole marker. If let's say, okay, I had a car, I had some incident, and I can simply say, I can just create a false certificate that, okay, I never had any issue with this car, but eventually I had like several ones. So this kind of way to double check, to validate, especially in the new world where you have like deep fakes, not only with the video, with the photos, but also with images and the voice and sound. We need an extra layer of verifying those artifacts. So again, there's so many widespread benefits into adopt to this new technology, but at the same time, we know they're gonna be not so easy. It's very challenging yet. So that's why maybe I can like invite Alexander to bring back to this discussion, and which main challenges, Alexander, you can see to the organizations start to use this kind of concept and to embrace this new way to verify IDs, not only about people but also about things.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is trust in technology, because as you said, the the way things work today is almost based on uh, trust on humans. So we trust that the policeman, he will do his best when verifying my driver license. We trust that given the bank will do its best when onboarding a new customer. We trust that whatever. So we always trust on someone's job. We trust on people to make this verification. And this is where this new technology comes as a disruption, because when the government issued me this piece of paper, it provided this paper with some attributes that makes it very difficult to
Counterfeit.
counterfeit. Yeah. So it's, I mean, the paper money, some stamps, some, it's kind of hard to replicate. But and we trust that public officials, they know how to identify uh, a legit document and a false one. And I think so. The biggest challenge is to trust on technology. I mean, to trust on cryptography, because that's where the biggest disruption will happen. When we say, okay, you don't need paper money, you don't need holographic stamp, you don't need so much mechanisms, analogic mechanisms to avoid counterfeit. You just need cryptography, and this is a big change, I think, in companies' culture, because the fiscalization, the verification, this it means power for people. So the policeman, what we are talking about, removing power from individuals and bringing this power to the technology. And when people lose power, it's a problem, because with that power they can do a lot of things. They can I mean, good things and bad things. And we say, okay, policeman, we don't need your to trust on you that much. Now we're gonna trust on the cryptography. So it's a big change. And okay, I'm using the police as an example, but let's talk about some government agency where you have some public official that he use his power to make change and to get benefits from it. And since you say, okay, this document doesn't need to be verified manually anymore, it's going to be verified by cryptography. uh, you are removing power from people. So I think this is the biggest challenge that we are going to face. And by the way, it's the same challenge that the financial sector is having with blockchain and cryptocurrencies as in general.
But
So
maybe before we go into digress, I want to go back to the diagram for a second
Yeah,
and point out, I think what you said is right, that trust really is going to be one of the central challenges of this new digital identity ecosystem. And so that's been one of my themes for a while. And I'd like to dive a little bit into this trust analogy and give one specific example. And that is the um, state of Arizona issued digital driver's license into Apple Wallet. And the TSA, the Transportation Security Agency, the guys at the airport, now accept a presentation of that driver's license from the Apple Wallet in order to board, to get into the airport and board a plane for travel industry.
mhm.
And the interesting thing that I found about that use case is that they don't trust the you might have that Arizona driver's license in a Google wallet, but they don't trust that yet. They only trust it out of the Apple Wallet. And I think that it speaks to one of the challenges that you not only the companies, if they're in the role of verifier, they will not only have to trust the issuer of the credential, but also the chain of custody that took place when the credential was put into the wallet and how that credential is protected in the wallet. In this case, they trust Apple. And I believe now they're accepting Google. So if you're an Android fan out there, don't despair. There's going to be Google too, or Android also. But anyway, at the time, the initial support was for Apple. Alexandre, do you think that that's typical of this trust challenge? And how do you see how are companies going to take on this new role of making trust management more efficient?
yeah. In the SSI literature, this this thing you just mentioned is what they call governance framework, which means it's not only about the technology, how to issue a verifiable credential, how to verify it, which algorithm, which cryptographic key we're going to use. It's not only about that. It's about how we will organize everything, the whole ecosystem, so we can trust on each other. So we know that, as you said, the custody chain is trustful, and the issuer is a certified issuer, and and so on. Uh, oh, what's your next? What else did you ask? Sorry.
Right. Some people would say that the one of the ways to solve trust um, is to create federations that maybe manage trust. So I'm going to group together. We have a common process to maybe apply to be a an issuer, and we might have a common way also to become a verifier, because verifiers need to be trusted. They need to protect the data they're getting, and also now to be a holder. So I think that we've seen federations work here, but I do think this is going to be a major challenge for companies. But let me pivot a little bit and ask you, so verifiable credentials, the work there has been going on for some time, probably 5 years or so. But this move to verify, to decentralize credentials is going to require not only new technology like wallets, which consumers are not used to, but it's also going to require new culture. Um, and what are your thoughts about, is this technology something that we should be worried about right now, or is this something that do you think is really more primed for the years 2030 and beyond?
Yeah, let me before Alexander elaborate, it's very important to state, at least according to my understanding. Uh, I believe that all the self-sovereign identity, verifiable credentials, all that stuff, it's much more interested for the people, for the person itself, rather than the organization, because this is the biggest benefit. It's exactly for, let's say, for the employee, for the bank customer, for the student, in other words, for the person itself, right? And that's why the region that is pushing this standard, like these technologies, like in a hard way, is Europe, because Europe is very concerned about data privacy. As Alexander mentioned earlier, this episode, like uh, nowadays, who owns the information about people are the big fours, right? So the big organizations. So what happens if a country, like let's say for some reason, like we are living like a very tough times, right? And let's say that any country, like let's say, blocks the access for, for Google, for, I don't know, Twitter or Facebook whatsoever.
Yeah.
So and these, in, let's say, for Google, I know there's a lot of organizations, they rely on the Google as authenticator, as they like a collaborative like platform. So what happens if for some reason those identities get blocked, so the people is unable to access, so that is a movement. And just to hand over, before I hand over to Alexander, that's why it's so critical. So people is looking forward a way to make them independent from those, let's say, third parties that are not so reliable. It's funny though. Another day I was having a conversation with some friends, and someone mentioned a travel about some specific destination. 5 minutes later, this guy got an Instagram, like advertising about this destination. So the joke was, well, someone heard my conversation. So how can we manage this data privacy? And that's why I believe this is going to be. We need a certain time to make this, as you said, like the change the people mindset, and also the organization's mindset as well. So do you agree with that, Alexander, or can you like add anything to that stuff? Am I correct
Yeah,
in my understanding?
sure. A lot of things cute. Uh, let's okay. Uh, Let me give some steps back. The first thing is, uh, Mike, you were talking about the how do you say,
The federations,
yeah, the
or
federations. Go,
yeah.
yeah, that's exactly that. So it's worth saying that there are some extremes. It's pretty much like the open source community, right? So there are the proprietary software, that are the free software, the Richard Stallman, and those are two different uh, extremes. So there's the same gradient in the SSI world, because in one end there are people saying that SSI is all about giving power to the end user, giving full control of data and identities to the end user, and there are something in the other side that are what we are having now, which is most of the data and identities being controlled by a few companies. And there are the middle of this gradient, which is, what if we don't go not too far to the right or to the left, but we can try to find a balanced situation, a balanced solution to solve our problems. So this is one thing. So and the federation that you mentioned, it fits on this middle strategy. right? And it's pretty much I can bind it with Edgar was saying. He said that the biggest uh, gains will be for the user, the end user, because now we are totally dependent of some few companies. So they if they want to just delete my account or block my access to my account, I will lose access to a lot of services that I use them to authenticate. So they have control of my digital life. They have control of my digital footprints. So it's all inside their database. So looking at this perspective, the end user should be the most interested part on having SSI as a reality, because that means that you user will have full control of your data and your steps and which data you want to share with who and etc. However, I don't think that this argument is good for companies, because companies they don't want to open the control of their database. They don't want to lose control of their user database. And given that, I have another argument to use to to organizations in general. So if the biggest benefit for the user, for the end user, is to have full control of its data, for companies in general, the biggest benefit is less error on their process, which means once you remove the need of human intervention on your business process, you will gain one, more velocity, less errors, and more security on what you're doing, more compliance with legal stuff and etc. So I
Well, I
think
just like
for yeah.
sorry. I'd just like to point out that I agree that it'd be great if our let's say the companies we work for and do business with could get this automated flow of information, but they could achieve this with a federated technology, not just with a self-sovereign technology. You know, one of the most successful government IDPs or identity systems in the world is Singapore, has a system called SingPass, and it's accepted by more than 200 relying parties in Singapore, including banks and telcos, but also employers are using it, just like you're saying, for attribute verification of identity. In fact, SingPass is so popular that some companies aren't even issuing IDs, employee IDs. They're using SingPass as their employee ID. Um, so what I'm saying though there is that that's an open ID based system, not a self-sovereign system. So it's possible to achieve these benefits without moving to this new model of decentralized self-sovereign identity.
Yeah, but this only makes sense for identities. What if we could have this technology applied to different kind of documents, not only at the identities? For example, contracts. For example, an assessment or a certification from any phase of a supply chain process. So we
Mm.
can use this concept, we can have verifiable credential for any kind of artifact that is produced on a business process. And this artifact can be issued in a verifiable credential form. And if it's done like that, we can verify it automatically using the SSI technology. And this is the biggest thing. Uh, Automate process.
Interesting. Yeah,
And
there's
maybe can
nothing that
combine, right?
says that,
I think the biggest, like one of the greatest things. Sorry, Mike. It's gonna be when you be able to combine such things, because I agree with you. Like a federation can, like let's say, share like identity claims and attributes over the transaction, the flows. But even those attributes, eventually they're going to be relying in just one party. You know. So again, let's say we have a pretty much the same thing in Brazil. Not so spread yet, but somehow the identity belongs to my identity belongs to the government, not myself. So that's why I believe that the very interesting point of a convergency we're going to be when you have a both like technologies kind of working together. There is a big road ahead, but we have like even standards like coming up. They're going to be combining those like OpenID and SSI, you know and maybe going to require even the platforms to be adapting themselves to support this kind of a thing. But I agree with you. So, and there's another interesting thing that Alexander and I would discuss very often, because at the Korea Labs, the company we work for, we have a product exactly to streamline this identity, the self-sovereign identity kind of technology. It's there's it's many use cases nowadays we can solve, essentially speaking, with an identity platform, IAM solution, or even like blockchain. So there's a lot of a use case that people they use blockchain because some while ago was a big hype, but most of the case could be solved by a simple databases, right? And the same with the many use cases yet can be solved with the, let's say, existing technology. But we're gonna be starting to see different challenges, and then these challenges where again, to rely and to avoid falsifications and all that stuff gonna be something gonna be happen over and over, especially because the economy is gonna be way more integrated, way more like synchronized. We have to look ahead and think how we can like not predict it, but try to solve this problem that is going to be totally new problems, right? So that's something interesting to add. Okay.
Well, let me dive in there for a second. So, yeah, I like this idea that the subject of a verifiable credential doesn't have to be a person. It
Mhm.
could be a piece of software. For example, one machine calling the API of another machine. Each of those could have a credential and be the subject of a verifiable credential. Um, and as you pointed out, Edgar, we don't need blockchain to describe
Yeah.
these entities. In order to establish trust, we could use signatures
Yep.
on an assertion on a JWT instead of verifying something on a blockchain and
Mhm.
verifying the hash on the blockchain. So yeah, so maybe this is a solution. But let me throw this back to you, Alexander, and ask, what is the use case? If you had to pick one use case, this is a very general purpose capability. What would be that entity, and what would be the business value that you see in that use case?
I mean, to choose one use case.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Edgar, guess what? Which one I will say?
The one we're
Uh,
working on, this
yeah,
one
yeah,
that I think it's well, Mike is based in I guess in Texas, right? Mike, you're based,
I
right?
am in Texas, and I didn't
So
mention this, but you guys are both in Brazil. I know, pretty
yeah,
close to
yeah,
Brazil. Yeah,
yeah.
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 Okay.
But there is a huge problem, which is tracking origin uh, of
Goods, let's
supply
say.
chain of goods and in a supply chain process, and it comes from meat, beverage, wine, wood, animals, fish, and a lot of things you need to certify that it was extracted from the nature in a legal form, or that it was produced according to certain standards, or that it's a truth product, not a counterfeit. So we are working really hard on this matter because there is a huge economic impact. There is a huge impact on the quality of the products will we will provide to society. There is there are a lot of impacts in terms of uh, legal extraction and of wood, animals, and stuff like that. And so for other use case, there are other kind of solutions that they are not perfect, but they work somehow. For example, that that thing, it works. My driver license on paper, it works already. Oh, you said there is already a digital version on my Apple Wallet, and it already works. Well, so we don't need SSI for it. It would be really nice, but it's not a must. But for this specific scenario of supply chain, tracking the origin of goods, uh, there is no solution yet. Everything people try to do, it's it still lacks a lot of security and
I
robustness.
remember quite a few applications of blockchain for this. For example, the provenance of fish, the provenance of diamonds. So I remember them trying to apply blockchain for this. I also remember all of them spectacularly failing and them realizing, hey, this costs us a ton of money. It's really slow and would have been cheaper to just use a database. And it's just decentralized.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder, though, I agree. I see how to issue that credential. I think the trick is we have a way to bind the analog and the digital world through authentication technologies like biometrics. How do we bind a diamond to a claim? I think that's a different, and maybe there is just like there are biometrics, there's diamond biometrics or fish biometrics. But how do you make the connection? Where's the wallet? That we have to trust not only the issuer, but we have to trust the wallet and the chain of custody as that credential was handed to the thing that it was then presented for purchase. If you guys figure that one out, I would love to see a white paper about it, and I'm sure that would be amazing. Well, we're actually coming up on their end. Why don't I why don't we go to last thoughts, or final thoughts? And Edgar, why don't you go first? And if anyone is in the audience out there, feel free to throw in some questions here too. But Edgar, last thoughts?
Yeah, so thanks, Mike. Thanks, like for the opportunity, and it's interesting because you already like create the link for a very interesting new. We're gonna be at Korea Labs. We're gonna be participating by the end of this May, the Identiverse in Las Vegas, where you're gonna be introducing our QID, which is our SSI verifiable credentials platform, where some of those use cases they're going to be presented at the at the booth and the conference. So I think there's a lot of interesting use cases. This use case there that Alexander was mentioning, it's a one of our early adopters customers. It's a kind of a wine, like a kind of a production process. And one of the things is a kind of a fancy with a lot of value add, like a wine. So that's why it's so interesting for this label, this company, to keep the reputation. So for them, it's extremely important, to keep all this control. One of the questions that we heard from this company owner was, "Oh, so can I? What about if this wine is going to be consumed like in 15 years from now? So do they can like to track about everything that happened to this like the single bottle, so this is one of the things that we can achieve with using the verified credentials and SSI and all that stuff. So I'd like to invite you, so feel welcome to visit us in our booth at Identiverse by the end of this May in Las Vegas.
Um, let's give our last words to our guest, Alexandre. Any last thoughts?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Mike, for the invitation. And my last thought is uh, everybody out there, I really know that generative AI is so hot, so sexy, but there are a huge world of possibilities in other fields of the technology. And I truly believe that the SSI, the self sovereignty identity, and also the decentralized identities fields, it's a much more blue ocean than other hypes that we are living right now. So if you are listening or watching us right now, I suggest you to give it a try because I think there is still a lot of to come in the near future, uh, and I'm totally sure that you will not regret because it's a game changer technology, absolutely. And open your mind because it's not only about identities as we talked here, it goes beyond identities, it goes to anything that can be any kind of asset, artifact that can be issued by someone and verified by another party. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to my guests. And I just want to give everyone a heads up that this week, Identity office hours is not going to be on Thursday. It's going to be on Friday at noon Central Time here in Texas. So we'll see you on Friday. We're going to discuss why big tech can't solve the identity crisis. I'm not sure what identity crisis it is, but we'll find out on Friday at noon. And thank you to the guests for joining us. And thank you to our sponsor, Glue.
Thank you. Bye bye.